These days, the Kia Soul comes only in all-electric form, so it's just as well that this brand's EV technology has hugely improved, to the point where almost anyone ought to be able to consider it. If you've been waiting for the right moment to join the battery-powered automotive revolution, that time may just have arrived.
You might think that the full electric car market could be pretty much divided into a couple of kinds of contender. There are the relatively affordable ones, like the Nissan Leaf, developed steadily to the point where its lithium-ion batteries can offer up to around 180 miles on a good day. Or for around twice the money, buyers can graduate to the more sophisticated battery technology which luxury models use. Cars like the Jaguar I-Pace, the Audi e-tron, the Mercedes EQC and various Teslas. Now with these, a driving range of around 300 miles or more is the norm. That used to be a reasonable EV buying perspective, but in 2018, the Hyundai Kia conglomerate turned up on the market with a couple of EV models offering the kind of range that you get in a luxury EV for the kind of price that you pay for a more affordable one, namely the Hyundai Kona Electric and the Kia e-Niro. This pair followed a year later by the car that we look at here, the Kia Soul EV. Prior to this car's introduction in late 2019, we had already had two generations of Soul, the original one appearing back in 2008 when it was one of the very first stylised compact crossovers, predating even the Nissan Juke. Its second generation successor, launched in 2014, attempted to move the game on by introducing the option of an all-electric drivetrain alongside combustion power, but with the electric EV version, the battery range was restricted and the styling was somewhat awkward. Undaunted, Kia has regrouped and drawn on more sophisticated electrified technology, which it feels far more confident about. So much so that it's decided that this third generation Soul model should only be available in full EV form. What's it like? Well, let's find out. Given that there are no longer any combustion engine variants of this Soul and Kia feels it unnecessary to offer any sort of hybrid variant, it's just as well that the driving range of this EV derivative is considerably lengthier than the previous generation full electric Soul model could offer. It's up from 132 to 280 miles, which has brought this car into play with a much wider cross-selection of buyers. It shares its 64 kilowatt-hour battery pack, its electric motor and its drivetrain with another Kia, the e-Niro, and with Hyundai's Kona Electric too. Unlike those models though, you don't get the option of a lesser 39.2 kilowatt-hour variant with a lower driving range and a commensurately lower price. Still, the 64 kilowatt-hour version is the one that you'd ideally want, and with 201 brake horsepower, it offers virtually identical performance to its two Korean cousins, making 62 miles an hour from rest in 7.6 seconds en route to 104 miles an hour. The suspension has been carefully worked on to try to deal with the effects of this car's rather prodigious 1,757 kilo curb weight. Not enough to make this car feel anything like a satisfying steer through the bends though. The rather vague steering doesn't help either. As with the e-Niro, the most impressive aspect of this Soul's powertrain lies with its adjustability, and that's thanks to the provision of a couple of different driving modes, normal, eco, eco plus and sport, and the ability to change the amount of regenerative charging that the car develops under braking. Now this regenerative setup can be controlled through steering column mounted paddle shifters just here, and once you've adjusted to that, it's really very straightforward to use. If you happen to like previous versions of the Soul, you'll probably recognise this third generation model, which draws on this model line's boxy origins but adds a more modern feel. At the front, this Soul's urban crossover design theme has been enhanced with sharp full LED headlamps integrated into this upper brow, which extends across the front. There's now a solid central panel in place of the usual grille, and just below, set off to the right, the charging socket is housed behind this small flap. There's a trapezoidal lower grille section, and straight style LED fog lamps beneath the headlights replace the cutesy round lamps found on the previous Soul EV. In profile, a previous Soul owner might notice that this Mark III model is a bit bigger than before. At around 4.2 metres in length, it's actually 80 mils longer than its predecessor. It's also 1605 millimetres high and 1800 mils wide, which makes this Mark III design a full size larger than the 2008 original. The windows taper towards the rear of the car, and there's this rather fussy C and D pillar arrangement flowing into that branded upper panel. A unique 5-spoke 17-inch alloy wheel design also features. The rear now features an LED light strip that wraps almost all the way around the rear screen, but it also draws on the design of previous models by retaining this island of bodywork in the tailgate. The cabin design apparently draws inspiration from the visualization of sound. Now, we're not quite sure what that means, but it probably explains the prominence of the signature tweeter speakers, which bookend the dashboard. Now, these are part of the Harman Kardon premium audio system, which typifies the high standard of spec, hence this black leather upholstery, at least with this very top model anyway, which was the only one which was available at the time of this test in mid-2020. You'd expect the interior of an electric car to be fully digitalised, and sure enough, that's what you get here. Through the many-buttoned 3-spoke multifunction wheel, you view a 7-inch TFT LCD SuperVision instrument cluster, and this has battery charge and range readings on the left, a digital speedo and an eco-driving meter on the right, and a customisable data section in the middle that includes trip computer data, driving style readouts, and an animated energy flow diagram. Anything that this can't tell you will probably be found on the sophisticated 10.25-inch UVO center dash touchscreen. This is the infotainment display that includes all the usual functions, including Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Split screen functionality allows the user to monitor different features at the same time, say navigation, audio settings, and the many and varied EV preferences which can be accessed here. There's no gear stick, of course, this being an EV, just this circular drive controller, twist for reverse, neutral or drive, and press for park. Kia's tried to add some nice design features. The stitched top of the instrument binnacle and copious amounts of easily smeared piano black finishing, for example. And there are lots of connectivity ports and plenty of useful storage areas. For example, this deep bin between the seats. One particularly nice, more practical touch is the provided button that enables you to control heat or chill only the driver's portion of the cabin if you're one up and you need to maximize range. The rear seat benefits from this Mark III model's 30mm increase in wheelbase length and the Soul's boxy dimensions, and that makes this rear bench feel far more spacious than more conventionally styled comparable compact hatches with a similar roadway footprint. The low centre transmission tunnel means that you could just about fit a third adult back here too. A little surprisingly, given this car's squarical looks, boot capacity isn't as much as you get in this model's Kia e-Niro cousin, 315 litres as opposed to 451. But it is a very versatile space with practicality that's aided by this adjustable height boot floor. Kia has forgotten to add bag hooks though. Fold this 60/40 split rear bench and up to 1,339 litres of capacity can be freed up. At the time of this test in mid-2020, the only version of the Soul EV available was the plushly specified first edition version we're trying here, which comes fully loaded with extras, but costs just over £34,000 once the government's £3,000 plug-in car grant has been deducted. So basically you're looking at a similar amount to that you'd have to find for plusher 64 kilowatt hour versions of the mechanically identical Kia e-Niro and Hyundai Kona Electric, or indeed for the uprated E-Plus version of the Nissan Leaf that you'd have to buy if you wanted to match this Soul EV's driving range. At least standard kit levels are generous. Well, for this first edition version they are anyway. Outside you get 17-inch alloy wheels, privacy glass, full LED auto headlamps, front LED fog lamps, power folding mirrors and rain sensing wipers. Inside there's black leather upholstery, heated and electrically adjustable front seats, a heated steering wheel. There's also automatic air conditioning, smart cruise control, an auto dimming rear view mirror, a head-up display and a 10-speaker Harman Kardon premium sound system. The 7-inch TFT Supervision Cluster digitalized instrument binnacle screen is standard too, as is a 10.25-inch UVO center dash touchscreen, which has navigation, Bluetooth, voice recognition, and Android Auto and Apple CarPlay smartphone mirroring. Plus, it also incorporates a reversing camera too. You also get plenty of camera safety tech. There is of course autonomous braking. Kia calls its setup forward collision avoidance assist, and this is complemented by a lane keeping assist system, a lane follow assist setup which will help you in traffic jams, and blind spot detection which stops you from dangerously pulling out in front of another vehicle. There's also high beam assist, driver attention warning as a guard against drowsiness, and rear cross traffic alert, and that will warn you of oncoming traffic when you're reversing out of space. Plus all the usual airbags and electronic systems for stability, braking and traction control. Many potential customers love to fire up their spreadsheets and produce some involved calculations which attempt to answer the question of whether the electric model will work for them better than a diesel or petrol version over a representative ownership period. So let's have a look at that. We've already mentioned the 280 mile WLTP rated driving range, which incidentally rises to as much as 402 miles for exclusively city orientated motoring. Obviously, to get anywhere near the official quoted range figures, you'll need to be using the two most sensible of the provided driving modes, Eco or ideally Eco Plus, both of which slightly restrict throttle travel and climate system performance, the latter majorly so. You'll need to maximize brake regeneration using these steering wheel paddles, and you'll also want to keep an eye on the drive indicator to the left of the instrument binnacle screen and stay in the lower blue charge zone and out of the upper white power section. This central part of the instrument binnacle display offers a selectable energy flow monitor and a driving style readout which rates your driving in percentage terms in economical, normal and dynamic categories. All the main EV stuff though is located on the 10.25-inch center dash screen. Drill down into your EV screen options and you'll find a map with a little blue radius bubble showing the range that you can drive from your current point. And there's an eco driving section which shows the carbon dioxide reduction that you've achieved on your journey compared to a petrol engine vehicle of comparable size. Plus what it calls your fuel economy history, even though you aren't actually using any fuel in miles per kilowatt. What else? Well, in EV settings you can plot your forward EV route showing range and charging places, and there's an energy information section with an energy consumption area which at any given time shows cumulative percentage consumption from driving, climate systems, the electronics and the battery. Energy information can also cover the potentially complex issue of charging. Now, this area can show the charging times necessary to replenish the battery with either a DC charger, an AC charge station, or an AC portable charge station. Talking of charging, there is a charge management screen section which allows you to set your own bespoke charging times to benefit from off-peak electricity tariffs and to set charging limits and charging current levels. You'll want to know about how this Soul EV's charging times stack up to segment standards. Well, pretty well as it turns out. It is possible to replenish this model's lithium-ion cells with a charge of up to 80% in just an hour and a quarter. That's providing you have access to a 50 kilowatt DC fast charger. If you haven't, then a 7.2 kilowatt home wall box will recharge a Soul EV completely in 9 hours 35 minutes, which, to give you some idea, would use around £9 worth of electricity at current rates. If you're somewhere where you only have a normal 3-pin plug from a 220 volt AC power supply, it'll take a yawning 31 hours to charge the car up completely. If you can find a fast charging 100 kilowatt charging station, the battery can reach 80% of charge in only 54 minutes. Servicing costs will be low. After all, with this Soul EV, there's no starter motor or alternator to go wrong, no drive belts to break, and no particulate filter to get clogged up with diesel fumes. The car will need a routine checkup every 12 months or 10,000 miles, depending on which comes around first. And you can budget ahead for garage visits by opting for one of the Korean company's fixed price service plans. There is the usual impressive 7-year Kia warranty too, but insurance, that's up at group 34. Car manufacturers are now getting a lot smarter when it comes to developing electric vehicles, and that's something that's ably demonstrated by this Soul EV. Range anxiety used to be a sensible reason for not buying a full battery powered model, but these days that's becoming less of a credible excuse. For the majority of people, the 280-mile range figure offered here will be quite sufficient. And although this Soul still costs quite a lot more than you'd have to pay for an average family hatch to buy, you'd quickly start making that premium back in day-to-day use. In a Volkswagen ID.3, you'd get an arguably classier interior. In a Nissan Leaf, you'd get more rear seat passenger space. But you'd have to be looking at the very priciest versions of both those cars to match the driving range that this Soul EV can offer. And neither is quite as trendy to look at as a Soul, although of course that is a matter of opinion. One thing's for sure though, if you're serious about EV motoring, then this car is a serious contender.